All right, so this is a sing-along, John Henry. Ready? When John Henry was a little baby, sitting on his daddy's knee, well, he picked up a hammer and a little piece of steel and cried, "Hammer's gonna be the death of me, Lord, Lord, this hammer's gonna be the death of me." I can't hear you. Now the captain, he said to John Henry, "I'm gonna bring that steam drill round, gonna bring that steam drill out on these tracks, gonna knock that steel on down, Lord, Lord, gonna knock that steel on down." You can at least do the Lord, Lord part, right? Here's how the kids do it. They go, "Lord, Lord." Try it. See, I knew you could. John Henry told his captain, "Lord, man ain't nothing but a man. Well, before I let that steam drill beat me down, I'll die with the hammer in my hand, Lord, Lord, I'll die with the hammer in my hand." John Henry driving on the right side, that steam drill driving on the left. And he said, "Before I let your steam drill beat me down, gonna hammer myself to death, Lord, Lord, gonna hammer my fool self to death." The captain, he said to John Henry, "What is that storm I hear?" John Henry said, "That ain't no storm, Captain. That's just my hammer in the air, Lord, Lord. That's just my hammer in the air." John Henry said to his shaker, "Shaker, why don't you sing? 'Cause I'm swinging 30 pounds from my hips on down. Just listen to my cold steel ring, Lord, Lord. Just listen to my cold steel ring." John Henry, he hammered in the mountains. His hammer was striking fire. But he worked so hard it broke his heart. John Henry laid his hammer down and died, Lord, Lord. John Henry laid his hammer down and died. All right, clap for yourselves. You did a wonderful, wonderful job there. Yeah, I just love singing songs with children because it's fun. I think we have so much fun doing it, and I use songs as a springboard for all sorts of projects. We did one this year on Irish history and culture because in Savannah, St. Patrick's Day is so big that kids get the day off from school to go to the parade. Yes. But there's this misconception that St. Patrick is all about green beer. So we had to counter that. So they had 35 students singing songs, presenting projects that they had researched on Irish history and culture. I use songs to teach reading. We use them as a grammar textbook. You can go through here and pick out the grammatical errors, you know, the double negative of ain't nothing but. You can use these to build fluency. Some songs are very high-level text. And how do you build fluency but repeated readings of a high-level text? Comprehension, you talk about these, you write about them. Vocabulary, shaker is a great word. What's a shaker? Multiple meanings of words. There's so much we use songs for. And this is one of their absolute favorites. This is one when I say, oh, okay, what do you guys want to do? You pick a song. This is John Henry, John Henry. This is the one they want to do. But I'd long been kind of ambivalent about this song because it's clearly a moral fable, right? It has a meaning to it, it has a message, but I was always like, what on earth is the message of this song? I mean, we have this guy here, and he's highly skilled at manual labor. Okay, now there's this emerging technology that's threatening his position, and so his reaction to that is to challenge an inanimate object to a duel to the death. I mean, think about it. It'd be like one of Dickens' washerwomen, you know, saying, the Maytag, you're going down. I can wash faster than you, and you know, she has a heart attack. And it's like, it's just weird. What is the message of this song? What does it mean? And I almost pulled it out of the rotation, but the kids loved it so much, so we kept it. But then, just this year, I was singing the songs with a bunch of third graders, and one of the lines in this song just jumped out at me, and I said, ah, that's it. And it was a line I hadn't noticed before, but it was like a passcode that unlocked the secrets of John Henry. And it was the line, Lord, a man ain't nothing but a man. And I realized, oh, that's it. John Henry isn't defending his job, he's defending his humanity. That's why he's a hero. And he's doing this for all of us. I mean, he's a very Christ-like figure. You know, through death, he finds victory. And it's something that extends to all of us because we're all humans. He says, you know, you can't beat me down. You can't tell me I'm worthless. You can't tell me I have no value. You can't tell me my work has no value. I matter. And so now when I sing this song with children, we talk about that lesson. And they pull it out with questions. And when you think about it, that really is job number one when we work with children, are those character-building moments that we can build good people. More than anything we do, we want to build good people. And that's kind of a controversial thing to say. But I learned this before my son was born. I had all these crazy ideas like, oh, we're going to start him on percussion when he's like a few months, and then move him into string instruments by the time he's 2, and scientific inquiry, and, you know, mathematical reasoning, and, you know, surround him with literature, and it was just crazy. And at the same time, we're taking a class at the hospital for new parents, and the purpose of this class was just to scare the bejesus out of you, because they would just tell you everything that could go wrong, and don't worry about it, though. And we were like, okay. But it made me think, I said, wow, what if he's born such that he can't be, you know, all in this Frankenstein way of mine that I had planned for him to be? What if he can't be all that? I mean, what if he's born, and I hesitate to use the word, but what if he's born normal? I mean, what if he's just average? What if he's ordinary? Oh my goodness, what then? Does that mean he's a failure and I failed as a parent if my son isn't like the smartest kid who ever lived? And so I had to stop and say, well, what is most important here? And it's like, well, I want my son to be a good person. You know, I have 2 daughters now as well. I want them to be good people. That is job number one. And if that's most important to me as a father, that's certainly most important to me as a teacher. But here's the problem. When we try to teach character, it's usually really lame. It just, the kids are like, that's lame. Because we do things like this. You know, we hang up a bunch of posters. You know, just say no. These are all taken around my school. Yep. Here's one of my absolute favorites. It says, teamwork, many hands, many minds, one goal. And there's a picture of the Great Wall of China, which was largely built using forced labor, and up to 1 million people died from the working conditions. If that's the picture of teamwork, then that's a team I'd rather not be on. Thank you. No. My absolute favorite, though, is this one. There's a dog holding a sign that says, stop bullying, and a cat holding a sign that says, be nice. Like the kid's walking down the hallway, and it's like, wow, I was just about to bully you, but then the dog says not to, and the cat. So, gee, your hair smells terrific, you know? Now, these are good. These are a positive force. You know, this is OK. But if this is a sum total of how we guide students to be good people, then it's not enough. We always want them to be good. But really what we often mean as teachers is we want them to behave. Like, as in, you know, please don't give me one more problem. You know, I have enough today. But behavior is just the outward manifestation of character, right? So really what we want is for them to be good. We want them to be good people, and we can help build good people. Now, some teachers will actually tell me point blank, like, no, that's not my responsibility. You know, I didn't give birth to him. I didn't raise him. Not my child. Let him go to church. I'm here to teach math, not morals. I'm here to teach reading, not right and wrong. But I would say that we are teaching right and wrong, whether or not we intend to, through what we do. You know, you picture the kids, you know, Miss Jones, he just called me the B word. Y'all stop that fussing and get back in line. You can make us late for lunch, right? I mean, was a moral lesson just taught there? You know, the value of a person versus the value of, let's get to lunch on time. So when we try to teach character, it's often lame, but that's job number one. So what do we do? Well, you won't be surprised here at PBL World that the answer is project-based learning. And here's how I discovered this. Actually, I didn't discover it. It was shown to me by a very wise person that I have the honor to work with. Her name is Sophia Hernandez, and she's a 4th grader. And she came up to me at the beginning of the year and said, Mr. McGrath, we really have to do something about the lost and found. I said, okay, Sophia, what do you have in mind? Because the lost and found actually was a huge problem at our school. We had a wheelchair lift that was just a steel box that was full at the end of the previous year with like 600 items. It was just packed. I mean, so that's 600 kids who probably went without a coat, or maybe mom had to buy a new one. And it was totally inaccessible to students, just a mess, dirty, nasty, bug-infested thing. And so she said, well, let's do something about this. She didn't say, oh, they should, or you should, or somebody should. She said, we should. So I couldn't turn her down. So we just organized it, got things together, put it in my room so it was controlled. It was great. We saw a huge reduction and got down to about 120 items on average that were coming in and out. But she said, well, that's not good enough. Okay, Sophia, what do you have in mind? She said, well, let's take pictures of all the jackets that we have and put them up on the TV, like the closed-circuit television in school, so they'll know that you have their jackets and they'll know to come get it. I said, okay, we'll do that. And it was a lot of work, but we did it. And by this time, Sophia had recruited 2 of her classmates, Brianna and Tiffany, and together they formed Team Lost and Found. And I should mention here that all their work was done. They would come, we would have lunch together, and we'd eat kind of quickly, and then we'd spend the rest of the time doing it. So not on class time. They would actually come before school and on rainy days when they weren't going out for recess, and whenever they could, and we'd work on this. But that wasn't enough, so we started a poster campaign. Tiffany said, it's not good enough to give kids their jackets back. We want them to stop losing them. Said, okay, Tiff, what do you have in mind? So Tiffany said, well, let's make some posters. This is the door that they use to go back in from recess. And of course, the playground's where they lose all the jackets. So, but not good enough, because when something's there all the time, you stop seeing it, right? Posters don't work. So we said, well, Tiffany said, we have to do something more. I said, okay, what do you have in mind? She said, well, let's make some commercials and run them on the news. I said, okay, let's do that. So here's Lost and Found.
A jacket taken off and left outside. The stranger finds it. It shall be returned. The lost shall be found, whether they want it or not. Don't forget your jacket.
So we had an awful lot of fun. We made a whole series of commercials, 6 different ones that we ran on the school news in a rotation. And they actually kind of became minor celebrities. Actually, they became major celebrities. They'd walk down the hallway, and a 1st grader would come to me and say, don't forget your jacket! and then Tiffany would complain about it, like, oh, these little kids won't leave me alone. I'm like, oh, it's rough, it's rough. And so at this point, the teacher in me says, we're on to something here. This is interesting. So I said, well, girls, how do we know when to run the commercials? Because I can't make a new one every day. We don't have the time for that. So when do we run the commercials? And they said, well, when kids are losing their jackets. And I said, when do they lose their jackets? And they said, well, it probably has something to do when it's hot. So they went on the National Weather Service historical weather data site each day and entered the data for the high and low and calculated the difference and how many jackets we collected that day and converted it to a line graph, which we sat down and analyzed and said, okay, we kind of suspected this, but when there's the biggest difference between the low and the high temperature for the day, that's when kids are most likely to lose their jackets, so we can look at the weather forecast, say we need to run a commercial today. Otherwise, they just get sick of the commercials, so we have to target our advertising. Now, through this all, done on lunch and recess, we achieved all these educational goals. I mean, and this wasn't something I had planned, but these are all things that these girls could not do prior to Project Lost and Found. They really didn't know how to use a digital camera. So, you know, like how to turn off the flash, frame a shot, how to import the photos then. We used Picasa, and they would crop them. You had a color balance because the red jackets always looked orange. And then, you know, I didn't lose an orange jacket, so we had to fix that. Then they had to import them into a slideshow and keep that updated. All the pictures were saved in dated folders so they could keep track of what was old, and the stuff that was months and months old, we would send up to the clothes closet at the Baptist church up the street, where they would be given away for free. What else? We put it up on the closed circuit system. So this is all stuff that they did. They would do this while I was eating lunch. And I was a hard taskmaster. And they also did some creative things, the posters, the videos. And now here was the extraordinary part, is that the idea of service built character in them. So let me tell you a little more about Tiffany. And I asked Tiffany's mother and Tiffany herself, we talked about it at length, permission to tell you a little bit more about her. So Project Lost and Found, she was in 4th grade. And I knew her as a 3rd grader. I mean, in fact, everybody knew Tiffany. She was what we educators would call, if I can be excused, a little pedagogical jargon here, she was a big-time troublemaker. I mean, she was notorious. She was that kid that like 5th grade teachers would like cross the hallway to say. She spent more time in the principal's office than in class, probably. Always, always, always in trouble. Like, you know, like, oh, hey, did you hear who threw a desk across the classroom? Tiffany. Did you hear who bit her teacher's finger? Tiffany. You hear who wrote all over the girls' bathroom walls? Tiffany. If the question was trouble, the answer was Tiffany. But then in 4th grade, like everything's cool. Like she's not getting in trouble at all. I mean, she still has this edge to her. She's like, she has this punk rock edge, but it was a little more Billy Idol than Sid Vicious. You know, it was kind of toned down a bit. And so I asked her toward the end of the year, I said, Tiff, you know, what happened? Like, you used to get in a lot of trouble. She's like, oh, yeah. I said, so what happened this year? And she said, well, Mr. Smith really helped me a lot, and that's her regular classroom teacher, Jason Smith. Great guy who sympathized with her, worked with her, loved her. And then she said, and you know, really doing Lost and Found. I said, really? How's that? And she said, well, I think of all those kids who lost their jackets, and because I got them their jacket back, they didn't get a whooping. And so in her mind, like that you go home and so it really changed her. And I said, okay, we might be onto something here. So I said, well, I have to test this. Now, building character is an unscientific thing. So I said, I have to test this unscientifically. I had the opportunity to go to Haiti with my church. We have a parish there we've been supporting for almost 30 years. And I said, well, while I'm there, I'm going to teach chess to kids in Haiti. So I had my educational goals. I had to learn Haitian Creole well enough to, you know, communicate and teach chess. And then I had to read up on the history and culture so I didn't make, you know, mistakes. And so I understood what was going on. It's a very complex country. And I wanted to see, would I grow morally as a result of this? And here's what happened. I walk in the first day, and I'm there. I'm with the principal, who's also the priest. And the teacher's standing there and the students, and it's a beautiful thing. When you walk into the room, they all stand up and they say, good morning, and the students greet you and then sit back down. It's beautiful. I walk in the room and I see these students and I see his teacher and I realize, oh my goodness, I spent 9 months learning Creole, reading thousands of pages. I read everything in the public library on Haitian history and culture. And I didn't think to ask the teacher if it was okay. I mean, how many classroom teachers do we have here? How would you feel if someone from another country walked into your room and said, hi, me teach you students chess, because that's probably what I sounded like in Creole. And you'd be like, oh, sure, come on, just take over my class. Go ahead, we weren't doing anything. I mean, I was like, oh my goodness. Am I that inconsiderate? And the answer was, yes, I am. I am that inconsiderate. I step on people's toes all the time. And then something beautiful happened. I'm teaching the kids, the ranks and files, the rows and columns of the chessboards. And the teacher, who had just been standing there like this, like gritting his teeth, he goes, oh, and he starts rattling something off in Creole way faster than I can understand. Like, and then he says, coordinate grid system. And I was like, oui, coordinate grid system, oui. And we just stopped for a moment, and we looked at each other, and we both just burst out laughing. And we actually crossed the room, and we like high 10 over the kids' heads, and the kids are looking at us like, this has never happened before. And it was his forgiveness that really inspired me, that he put aside my inconsideration, just walking in his class like, hey, I'm an American, I'm going to take over your classroom. And he put that aside and said, well, let's do this together. And so no longer was I teaching chess to these kids. We were, and I have never team taught like this before. It was like one teacher in two bodies. It wasn't even him translating for me. And in fact, he was learning the game as we went. He had never played before. And yet we were just together in this, and these kids loved it. We had such a good time. And I only had a short time with them. We did 4 one-hour sessions. And at the end of that time, they were able to play a game. They had gotten the basics of it. And so I realized, hey, now I'm somebody who plays well with others. I went back to my school and I realized, oh, I have this great idea, and I said, okay, stop, and ask people, like, what do you think? This is going to affect you. How do you feel about this? Could we do this some other way? And I'm trying now to be a more considerate person. So I discovered that when you do service-based projects, it builds character. And what do you get out of it? You get what you need. Like Tiffany needed to learn compassion to help her get herself in line, to relate to these kids who had lost something and needed her help. And I needed to learn to be a little bit more considerate. So you get what you need through these. And we met educational goals as well. So this is what we can do. This is your take home. We can build good people through service projects. So whatever projects you're planning, if there's a service element to them, we can help to build character that way much better than a poster of the Great Wall. Now, this is why we're all in teaching, right? This is why we work with young people. This is what it's all about. I mean, this is my Scarface moment here. It's about the power, the prestige, and the money. No, I'm sure if I ask everyone here, and me as well, we do it because we want to make a difference in kids' lives. And what more difference could we make than to build good people? Now, here's my ultimate ego trip. I'm going to let you into my ego for a moment and show you some of the pretty shiny things there. Okay, so it's like my funeral. No, it's a memorial service. And there's a podium with a microphone. And people are coming up and they're like, when I first went to school years ago, I didn't want to be there. But every morning, Mr. McGrath would greet me and say, hey, buddy, how you doing? Good to see you. And it was only years later that I realized he called me buddy because he didn't know my name. But I do know that he was glad that I was there. And that made me want to come to school. And that's what made a difference in my life. I mean, isn't that what we all want to hear? I mean, who wants your principal to stand up and be like, her test scores, her standardized test results increased by 3.4%. She achieved exemplary proficiency on several of her performance review. So this is what we want. We want to make a difference. So how do we do that? Well, we need to be good people. I mean, that's what I learned. I need to be a good person. Robert Coles, one of the greatest writers on children, has a book called The Moral Intelligence of Children. He says that the main thing they're doing is they're watching us. So we need to be good people, of course, and that's how we'll build good people. Now, I know this is all something you already know. I have nothing new for you today. I know that you want to make a difference, and I know that you know how to do it. So all I can say then is thank you for making a difference. Thank you so much.